This week's commentary on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita. The topic is God present even there where there is ignorance? Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. The Gospel of St. John, chapter 1, makes a reference to the divine light that is obscure to the rational faculty, but that enlightens our higher nature. The light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. Reason recoils from this statement with innumerable questions. What is this darkness? Is it conscious that it should comprehend anything? What sort of light would be capable of shining in darkness without transforming at least that part of the darkness in which it shines into light? Does this light shine only at night? And if so, why only then? The solution is that to divine sight, even daylight seems darkness. The sun itself, like the moon, which shines only by reflected light from the sun, is but a kind of reflection of the cosmic light, which, being immaterial, is invisible to the eyes, but which is the great source of all material reality. In Autobiography of a Yogi, Paramhansa Yogananda describes his youthful visit to Ram Gopal Muzumdar, the sleepless saint who lived in the vision of that hidden light. Around midnight, Yogananda wrote, Ram Gopal fell into silence, and I lay down on my blankets. Closing my eyes, I saw flashes of lightning. The vast space within me was a chamber of molten light. I opened my eyes and observed this same dazzling radiance. The room became a part of the infinite vault which I beheld with interior vision. Why don't you go to sleep? Sir, how can I sleep in the presence of lightning, blazing whether my eyes are shut or open? You are blessed to have this experience. The spiritual radiations are not easily seen. The saint added a few words of affection. This is the light that shineth in darkness. It has been described variously in the great scriptures. In the Bhagavad Gita, the 11th chapter, the devotee Arjuna is given an experience of the infinite state and exclaims in awe, if there should rise suddenly within the skies sunburst of 1,000 suns, flooding earth with beams undeemed of, then might that be that Holy One's majesty and radiance dreamed of. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om. Om. Om.
How many birds does it take to change a light bulb? A toucan do it. That's my dad joke. Interesting. So I'll start with Whispers from Eternity, and it's such a beautiful reading. It's demand that through all tests and trials, the love of God may never fade. O Spirit, I care not if all suffering comes to me, all things be taken away from me. I pray only that my love for thee never fade through my own neglect. May my love for thee burn brightly forever on the altar of my constant remembrance. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. It's interesting because we started, I think the first rays of one light was around Let There Be Light. And now we're sort of seeing if that light actually is always shining. And it's brought me to a story from Autobiography of a Yogi, and it's where chapter 9, the blissful devotee in his cosmic romance, and he goes to see Master Mahasaya, and basically he said when he enters the ashram, which used to be his home, and then turned into an ashram. And the saint basically asked him, he says, quiet yourself, little sir. So we can see there's agitation and restlessness, because if you remember, that master came to that house, but that home was where he lost his mum. His mum passed away actually in that home. And he said, that the simple words of greeting, which he was asked to sort of be simple, he said, produced the most violent of effect my nature had so far experienced. The bitter separation of my mother's death, I had thought the measure of all anguish. Now an agony of separation from my divine mother was indescribable torture of the spirit, and I fell moaning to the floor. And he asked Master Mahashaya to promise that he would reach out and, ask if Divine Mother was still there. And the story goes that as he left, Mahashaya said, oh, that's a very significant promise that you're asking me to make, and I'll do my best. And anyway, as he walked away, Divine Mother essentially came to him in a vision. Basically, everything disappeared in the streets, and Divine Mother appeared as light to him and lit up for him. And he said, hello, in the splendor, the words say, the Divine Mother stood before me, her face tenderly smiling, and was beauty itself. Always have I loved thee, ever shall I love thee. In the celestial tone still ringing in the air, she disappeared. And it's, to me, it signifies the story of this is Divine Mother, or the light, always there, and it is. And we just tend to block it out. The light's always shining. And really, it depends on how much we put up shade. So you can imagine we're born into this world, or into this world, and I imagine it as these shiny, bright, have you seen those really expensive golf umbrellas? They're really reflective on the top, and then they're super bright. And so, we're given these umbrellas, and, we can pop them up because we're attracted to the bright light on these umbrellas, and we go out and we grab one, and the next thing you know, the reaction to the attraction to that bright light is that the umbrella pops up, and then it takes away a bit of shade. And constantly we've got this battle of where are we getting our light from? And if we keep getting attracted to these beautiful umbrellas and they have to react and pop up, they take away the real light that's there. So there's that duality of life. It's kind of interesting because it makes you think about perspective really in relation to this. So is God always there? Yes. And again, it depends on how we often perceive life, because often through life there's tragedy, and the first person that we feel we need to blame is God, isn't it? It's kind of interesting. We're these little specks on this planet, and we believe that we have utmost control over this being and everything that happens. And then anything that goes wrong, it's always, oh, it wasn't me, it was someone else, in relation to how things pop up. And it reminds me a bit of if you think about this perspective, if you think of like two parents talking through their life with their children, there's one parent that sits there and says, look, I worked really hard and I brought up my child. And from the minute my child was born, they were needy. They wanted everything. They were stubborn. They went out through life. All they wanted to do was escape my clutches. They just wanted to get out. And all they wanted to seek was these older people that were trying to basically tell them to, or give them ways to break the societal laws. And, as a parent, you're thinking, I'm listening to this story thinking, wow, must be a tough being a parent of this child, and they're constantly not wanting to go to university, not want to better themselves in society. That all their sole purpose, from that they're there, is to get out and find ways to get older people to teach them how to break the societal laws. And you sit there, and then on the other hand, you've got this other parent that's describing their child of essentially you know, obviously a lad growing up, but then having a will to want to work with their parent. And so they wanted to basically work to the point where they're like, oh, I don't know really about school. I know school will give me something, but I know I can just work with my dad forever and sort of earn some money. But then they kind of come to the realization, this child, that if they do go to school, they'll actually learn, you know, the laws, and they'll learn societal laws to better themselves, and then ultimately serve their dad. And you know, eventually this dad becomes really proud because the child goes through uni, works hard, but while they're working for their dad, they expand on their dad's business. They learn to manipulate or understand societal law to the point where they can grow bigger and bigger and help their own business. Now they've supported their dad or bettered what their dad had, and then got better in that. And eventually they get so good at what they want to do, they go into politics. And just to put that into perspective, the first child that we spoke about, his name was Mukunda, and he turns out to be Yogananda, if you look at it from that perspective. And the second story that I told you about ends up being, I won't mention his name, the name that shall not be mentioned, ends up becoming the president of the United States. And there are two stories and two perspectives on those, where they are and how they've been brought up. And if you think about it from a worldly perspective, they've both got different points of views. And it brings you into life. It brings you into the fact that if you think about what each one was doing, one was literally trying to know where the light was and take down umbrellas and seek universal law, not societal law. They wanted the seek truth on how to get light shining through us all the time. But the second one was seeing how many umbrellas they could buy to pop up and fester their own lights. How many societal laws can they manipulate really to add shade to what they are? If you look at them in perspective, the light is always there, still shining on us all. That light is constantly over us. We are choosing to either pop an umbrella up and reflect it, or not. And I say that kind of interesting because are they choosing or not? You know, some people aren't aware that what they're actually after. We're very fortunate on this path at this level to want to even recognize that there is that light constantly behind us, and we're seeking ways to bring the umbrella down. But through life, and you talk about reincarnation, and I won't go into it too much, but essentially we're evolving over this time to get there. And it comes back to the first one person had a realization to be God and become one with God, and to the point where they were an avatar and actually had that recognition and opened up that channel to be there. And it was a story I was listening to with Usher, and Usher said, you know, someone asked if we were like an avatar was to humans, or we are like humans to a dog. Are we that same level of consciousness? Where does that work? And it was described in a different way. It was, well, basically we're on this path of free will. God's given us free will. And the first part of it essentially is we are on this level of recognition of consciousness. So our consciousness first is absorbed in self, like an animal, and they basically, we learn to eat, feed, but an animal can't really think about the consciousness of fellow humans or where they shed light or not shed light, whereas we're on this path of actually being drawn to that. So self-awareness, the journey really is self-awareness, to the point of self-awareness, to self-realization. So humans are at a point of self-awareness, but they're not. That journey is getting rid of that self-awareness enough to know that we're actually a part of that light. And the degrees of ego on the spectrum from ignorance essentially to self-realization is another way to look at it along that spectrum. So God is always there. And I'm going to read another story about that. And it's not a story, it's actually a song from the Levitating Saint, the chapter of the Levitating Saint. It was from Mirabai. And it's becoming, and it reminds me a little bit of, I have this conversation with my own dad, and he talks about we should get rid of the word want. And I know there's lots of even chants around I want and, you know, these kind of things. But essentially along this path of realization, we want to take away that want. And Usher talks about it, you know, at what level of want are we at? Are we, oh, I want to want to want to want that answer? Or am I just at I want to want? Or I want. And I'll take it one step further, and it's getting to a point of getting rid of the want, but I actually need, I need it. And it's a different level of needing that. Now, goal is really to know that we only need God. I can want God. I can want all those things. I can want to take umbrellas down, but at some point I need that light. And this beautiful song that Mirabai sang, ecstatic songs, which are still treasured in India, and I translate one of them here, and it's, if by bathing daily God could be realized, sooner would I be a whale in the deep. By eating roots and fruits he could be known gladly, would I choose the form of a goat. If the counting of rosaries uncovered him, I would say my prayers are mammoth beads. If bowing before stone images unveiled him, a flinty mountain I would humbly worship. If by drinking milk with the Lord could be imbibed, many calves and children would know him. If abandoning one's wife would summon God, would not thousands be amongst? Mirabai knows that to find the divine one, the only indispensable is love. And it's such a beautiful, if you get a chance, in this blue book, it's on page 63. And it's a song of devotion. It's basically that story that I read, the part of the autobiography that I read. Yogananda was devastated that he could not see God or feel God. He was devastated that even grief got in the road enough to put an umbrella up to shade that light that's constantly there. And he grieved so much, he had a need. He didn't just want, he had a need for Divine Mother, his Divine Mother. And that's what we need to put into our devotion. That's where it needs to be. And that is that love that's spoken about. That truly is the way to be there. It's a need to want to be with the Divine Mother. And really it comes to, and maybe later we can play the chant, it's God alone. It's living for God alone. And I keep thinking of the essence as we go through life. But if every moment of your day that you're tied up in it, you think, how did I come into this world? And essentially you came into the world with nothing, absolutely nothing. And then think about when you leave this world, you're going to go with absolutely nothing. So really, what does it matter what's around us at this moment? We're only here for a tiny speck of life. We've got this absolutely amazing karma that we want to find God. How much energy do we put in behind it?
I have a little, just a tiny bit to add that is more about a yoga affirmation. So in Ananda yoga, we use affirmations to really help the mind focus on changing the patterns of thought that we allow to drive that way of being in the world, really. And so I thought all of us could just take a moment to do a pose together, and it's ukta, no, it's technically it's camel pose, but we're going to do it sitting in a chair. So if you could just bring your hands kind of one behind the other on the backs of your chair. And this is just meant to be gentle, so nobody do anything that's going to harm themselves or go past a point of comfort. But just taking a moment, we're going to slightly arch our back as we bring our neck up, but not hyperextending it, just kind of, gently raising it and feeling a nice arch. But more, what I want you to tune into is the openness of your heart. And this is the affirmation for the camel pose. With calm faith, I open to thy light. Repeating that inwardly and lifting your gaze. With calm faith, I open to thy light. Breathing in, allowing the breath to fill any space of tension or resistance. And then when you need to exit, please just feel free. Otherwise, just remain in the pose. We'll do it one more time. The affirmation. With calm faith, I open to thy light. And on your next inhalation, coming up, just sitting upright, placing your hands facing upward as we would in meditation. And again, feeling all the energy that's released here and awakened at the point between the eyebrows, drawing it inward and upward. With calm faith, I open to thy light. And then when you feel ready, just open your eyes. And the reason that it felt like the right pose is because this week's topic, if you think about the word ignorance, what word is in that word? Ignore. So when we ignore God's inner voice, the soul is always there, has it's listening to God, to spirit, and it walks with spirit, it acts from spirit, but we have to listen. We can't keep ignoring that inner voice. That's why the whispers from eternity, the whispers of God, it's not like God's like, hey, listen. It's just a very inward they always describe God as humble. God is just not, oh, I'm so amazing. God's just humbly a presence of life force, of inner knowing, of truth. And when we ignore that, we can't be a reflection of the light. And so in that affirmation, you can go so deep on this spiritual path by just doing that one pose and feeling how hard it is to open our heart and receive that calm faith that God's voice can speak to us through, to really feel that we're not ignoring spirit, that we're allowing that channel to be opened through the heart, through the love that we can be a channel for. And so as you go into your week, a little exercise for you is to notice when that little inner voice is talking to you, and maybe write it down or at least pause and acknowledge it, because even God's always telling us even tiny things. Like I think I was washing dishes, which a lot of people say that's when they'll hear the voice. And it was like, do not feed Olive too many bits of oatmeal. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I was very, very wrong about that. And so I had a little consequence in my day because of that. And if you think about it.
So did I.
Yeah. If you think about it, there are so many moments where if we had just listened to that little voice, we would have saved so much time. And we get kind of out of tune with life. Life has a synchronicity and a harmony. And I think you all have noticed when you're in tune, it's like, oh, that person came that I was thinking of and it went wonderfully. And then all these amazing things lined up in my life. And that's how God gives us more time and more energy, by being in tune. But we do have to stop and we do have to listen. And so just throughout your week, just think about those moments where a little voice tells you something, that little intuition is speaking to you, and just follow it. But it might require getting yourself kind of trained to pause and really not override it. And so you have to have faith and a calm heart to be able to listen. So just wanted to leave us with that little brief thought. And thank you all for joining us today. And we will play a song that has to do with this theme. I don't know if I can find the one you're talking about, but
God alone?
I was thinking we could play it tomorrow at meditation if I can't find it easily.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll tell you while you're trying to find it, I'll tell a little story. It was a story upon a story. Pranaba was telling a story of when they'd finished a meeting at the village, and Davy pulled out her smartphone and showed an image of a little boy basically getting people to have a choice. And we've heard the same choice. Well, do you choose to be happy? Do you choose these things? And so Davy showed this image, and she said, "Oh, it's amazing." He wasn't actually speaking to anyone. He was probably trying to get some TikTok votes or something. I'm not quite sure what it is, but it is. I mean, Swami said that, didn't he? We have to choose these things and choose to be happy. And where we put our energy is where that choice becomes. I think Pranaba went on to say essentially that if you choose to be grumpy, then you'll become very, very, very good at it. If you choose to be angry, you'll become very, very, very good at it. So we have choices, don't we? If we choose to be happy, let's get very, very good at being happy and joyful, So, but they are choices. We actually choose it. And as Kalamali always says, fake it till you make it. You may as well,
Oh, yeah.
What's the outcome?
Oh, just take a breath and switch it up. Stop holding on to being upset. I love just the way that people that aren't in their ego, usually young children, of course, the example of a dog, they're not living in their ego. So they just let things wash off of them. And in fact, I think the other day, Arati was getting really upset about something that she'd done wrong. And she was starting to feel bad about it. And I said, let it wash over you and be gone. Just let it trickle over you and then let it go. And she just did. Yeah. But we're grown-ups and we find that hard.
But we learn it. We learn it. Yeah. So I had my little niece, and I had a car issue, my brother. That's why I was late this morning, but I swapped cars. But yeah, my little niece was clingy to dad, and she was crying, and I grabbed her and distracted her, and she stopped crying. We had a little laugh together and talked through it. Then she saw dad again, and she put on a sad face and started crying again. And I said, I beg your pardon. You were just happy with me. And she looked at me. I said, you don't need to be sad. It's a choice. And she went. So they learn it. When we feed it from a young age, they learn it. So. And you're helping rewire her brain to do that more often. So well done. All right. Here's a little song for us. This is a gorgeous song from the oratorio. It's Mother of Wisdom. So I hope you enjoy it.